You are welcome. Okay, we're all set. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. So really quickly, in the chat, can you tell me what your favorite character is from Star Wars and why? We're jumping right in. No one has a favorite?
They're in there. Are you able to see them, or would it help for me to read?
Probably help for you to read because I can't see them.
Perfect. We got Luke, the hero.
Nice.
I'm biased. I put in Yoda. There is no try, only do. Not a fan. Coming from iPhone, fair enough. It is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. Another vote for Yoda, C-3PO, Han Solo, Princess Leia, maybe Yoda. We got a range.
Got a range. Good. So that means everyone has seen at least one episode of Star Wars. And yes, as Leslie said, today is May the 4th. And so that is why we are beginning with that quick bit of trivia. And also it will lead into our presentation. So today we're going to be talking about how to be the ideal remote teammate. But really what we're going to talk about is how you can serve your team. That's really ultimately what our outcomes for today are going to be. And so let's talk about that. We're going to make sure that we talk about why we need to be a good team player. We're going to also talk about 4 key points, and we have a bonus, learning from Dr. Sheila last session on Friday to always include a bonus, an action plan, and next steps. So what your teammates are really missing is not so much water cooler gossip, but connection. You know, the times that we can laugh together or share together, many of us are missing those times. And so because we're in a virtual world, we have to figure out how can we be teammates and still keep those connections. So our new reality kind of looks like this, where we're sitting at our desk, hopefully with some beverage of choice, and we're connecting with people that way. But unfortunately, it leads to a lot of us feeling a bit disconnected. And so when that happens, it really feels like a crime scene has occurred. Like, you know, you've kind of either died or you've killed someone in the process. So how do we fix that? So if you remember, we did poll everything if you were with us before. I would love for you to be able to either text your answer, or if you've got the app on your phone, as you can see, I'm grabbing my phone, and let me know, what does it feel like when you're working on a great team? And if some of you have put it in the chat, Leslie will be kind enough to tell us what's in the chat. I can't see the chat.
So it's coming up in the chat, how you feel when you're working on a great team. We've got Rock saying, energized. Oh, they're coming in like mad now. We got energized, motivated, a sense of connection. These are great, folks. Denise said secure, included, confident, more on motivated, enlightened by diverse perspectives.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's from D. We've got calm. Erica says confident. Lacey says comfortable. We're in the C's here. We got calm, confident, and comfortable. I like that pattern. And of course, your screen's filling too.
Yeah, we've got a lot on the screen. I love the exhilarated and energized, ready to work, supported, hopeful. These are really great. I'm so glad everyone is contributing to this. And that's really, all of those words really mean that we feel connected with the people that we work with, or those great teams that we've been on. So I'd like you to hold on to that thought, because our goal is, how do we translate that on all the different teams that we work on? Because now we don't just work on one team, but we work on a lot of teams. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the movies Jumanji. And if you are familiar, please put in the chat yes or no, one way or the other. But the point of this is that of the movie is that each person goes into the game and they become a different avatar. And on your screen, you'll see those avatars. And the thing about those avatars is each one has a strength and has a weakness. And the truth is, our strengths and weaknesses combined help us become great teammates. It's not just what we're good at that helps us, but it's also what we're not good at, what we consider strengths that also can solidify a team. And so as we think about our strengths and weaknesses, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can bring all of ourselves to the teams that we work on. So our first key point today, we're going to look at Patrick Lencioni's model for an ideal teammate. How many of you are familiar with his book, The Ideal Team Player? And if you can say in the chat, and Leslie will jump in at any moment to tell us what's going on in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you can too. So with that model that he has, we're not going to look at all of it. We're just going to look at the center, which is the ideal, because each one, if you have too much, you can go one way. If you have only two, you can go another way. But we're going to look at the combination of those three and what makes an ideal team player. So let's first look at humble. In the chat, or if you'd like to unmute, when you think of the word humble, what do you think of?
We see giving, reserved, selfless.
That's good.
Selfless times two, not boastful, kind, good listener. This is wonderful, respectful. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. That's from Humble.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Those are all really good. And so when we talk about that, all those things that you put in the chat are exactly that. It's about not having a huge ego. It's not saying not to have an ego, because the truth is we all do have an ego, but it means not having excessive. I think the person that put in the chat about thinking less of yourself and more of others, I'm paraphrasing that statement, it was really great and encompasses that idea of really not having an overactive ego. And it's also not thinking about your status all the time. We live in a world of social media where we talk about status all the time. Unfortunately, well, probably not most of us of a certain age, but people that are a little bit younger than we are will think about status all the time. And it's really about being quick to point out what others have contributed on your team, and also sharing in that credit. So for example, you know, if we talk about the fact that like Mike has really helped in these series by bringing these great points across to each of the times that he has contributed, as an example, or Diane and some of the other great people that have contributed. So it's pointing out the contribution of others that has made this series really wonderful. And then it's emphasizing the team over self. And I think someone mentioned that. So if you've got a piece of paper handy, I'd like you to write out the answer to two questions that I'm about to pose. The first is, how humble are you? On a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being very humble, 1 being not humble at all. And then I have a yes/no question for you. So do you offer and receive apologies gracefully? So I'm going to have 4 total questions for you. So on your piece of paper, answer the first in the 5 being the most and 1 being not at all, and then the yes or no. So this is for our Luke Skywalker fans. How humble are you? So our second key point is around being smart. So in the chat, please tell us what you think that means to be smart. And I love my minion that looks like Einstein. So what do we got going, Leslie?
We have got a lot going on. Okay, smart enough to know how smart you really are not. That is Rock. Great.
I love Rock. Rock's so good.
Absolutely. All right, I got to backtrack here, though. We got a lot. Being innovative, educated, Geneva. Welcome, Geneva. We have JML saying making good choices. Denise says knowledgeable and educated. I put in know your strengths and weaknesses. No one great leader can do it all.
That's a good one.
Guest said to be thoughtful. We have M. Coronado saying tactful. Angie, a smart person uses data, intuition, and proactively applies research. I'd like you to come speak to my workplace research class next year because that's exactly on target. Dee talks about being a subject matter expert. Kiera, putting ideas together and making them one. Emily, a great leader doesn't have to be the most intelligent, but must be people smart, social, and know how to deal with different types of people.
Yeah, that's so good. Those are so good. And that's really what we're talking about. Yes, we're talking about being smart in terms of, being able to understand data, as Angie said, and being able to interpret that data. But we're also talking about what someone said about people smart. You've been looking at my slides beforehand, I see. We're talking about having common sense about people, being a good judge and using your intuition about people. And some things that if you were at Mike's presentation, which was the first of this Encore series, where he talked about emotional intelligence and what that looks like and strategies around that, that's a great presentation to revisit in looking at SMART. And we're also talking about listening skills. Jan Sugar has a system called GRACE, which I'm going to show you a little bit of that system in terms of listening. And the first is generate, and it's about generating great questions. It's about having that intellectual curiosity about things and about people. And more importantly, it's not the first question that we pose, but it's the second one, which is the question that reflects the answer that someone gives us that helps us go deeper in a conversation. And I love that. And the second one, which is my personal favorite of her system, which is remembering. And it's really about the fact that when someone gives you a piece of information, that you not only remember that piece of information that they've given you, but you're able to recall it later in conversation. It shows someone that you've really been listening to what they've said to you, and what they said meant something to you, meant enough for you to remember it and recall it later. The A is to alternate. So think of it in terms of it's not a dissertation. It's really a conversation. So it means allowing people to ask you questions as well and allowing them to have that sense of curiosity and going back and forth. So you're not just monologuing in the course of what is not really a conversation if it's one-sided. And then clarifying. Think of this in terms of being really specific about what you see and what you listen to. So think of it in terms of, which I love, Jan gives this example about gift cards. So it's nice to get a Starbucks gift card, but it's nicer to maybe get a gift basket of things related to coffee if you happen to be a fan of coffee. So in conversations, we listen and we observe, and we reflect that back in the conversation with specifics so that it's not just about thinking about what's the next thing I want to say, but really being in the moment. And then empathizing. I think what's really important with this is really looking at, it's not just saying, I know how you feel, but it's really connecting with the person and really listening to understand their emotion. And then I love this kind of warning that she gives, which is to be careful that in your attempt to be kind, that you don't hijack the conversation about your experience when you're listening to someone express what's going on with them. And so that's really what grace is. It's about listening with grace. And I love this system. So our next question is, how smart are you? On a scale to 1 to 5, 5 being very smart, 1 being not so smart. And then our yes, no question, are you aware how your actions and your words impact your teammates? So I'll give you a moment to write that down on your piece of paper. And of course, we have Princess Leia, which nobody mentioned as her favorite. She happens to be my favorite. Okay, our third key point is about being hungry. So in the chat, what do you think that means? Or you can unmute if you'd like to talk. So Leslie's gonna, when the chat starts going, she's gonna jump in and tell us what's going on in the chat.
We've got hungry, meaning eager and energetic, motivated and driven, a willingness to learn and engage, curious, inquisitive, thrive for knowledge, answers, resolution.
That's a good one.
Being eager to learn and participate, going above and beyond curious.
Those are all good. Those are all really good. I love all of those. And that's really, all of those really encompasses this. Hungry is really about looking for more ways to learn, to do, to take responsibility, to be self-motivated, and to also always thinking about what's the next step, what's the next opportunity, that idea around passion. I think someone said passion and curiosity. That's really what that next step is about in terms of hungry. And so our third question is, how hungry are you? And of course, we have Han Solo there, kind of representing that. And then our yes/no question, do you look for opportunities to contribute outside of your area of responsibility? Now, those three come directly from Patrick Lencioni's book. So it's that humble, smart, and hungry. That combination makes the ideal teammate, according to Patrick. Now, I believe that there's also something else that makes the ideal teammate, which is our fourth point, which is value. And when you think about that, what comes to mind? So in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute, what comes to mind when you think value? And of course, Leslie, who is playing the role of Vanna White today.
Thank you. Okay, oh my goodness, we are filling up here. This is great. All right, when it comes to value, we got Emily saying what you can offer that is unique from others. It's a great point, a lot about branding. We heard Sheila Boyson talk about that last Friday too.
Yes.
Patrick talks about morals and work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Importance, says Kira. Hold on, more coming in here. What I can contribute to the project, says Geneva. Provide more than what's expected for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Your worth, feeling like you're needed within the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So important today, especially. Yeah. We're going backwards here. Focusing on goals and beyond, not just contributing for contribution's sake. And then people who are open, contribute and value other people's contributions.
That's so good. Those are really good. So what we're going to talk about, you know, for a long time, I kept thinking, what is engagement? And I realized that engagement is the result of the experiences that we have at work, which really makes me, I'm going to be very vulnerable and open here and say, I really dislike employee engagement surveys because I don't think that they measure the right thing. Because at the end of the day, engagement is the result. And so the question becomes, how do we get that result? So it's by what everyone said in the chat, those things. But more specifically, we came up with a system that helps people measure their own engagement. And the first one is really a question that you ask yourself, and it's worth 25 points, is, do I feel that the company, and the company can represent my boss or the company as a whole, or if I'm higher up in the food chain, so to speak, the CEO or the board, do I feel that they see the value in the work that I do? And then the next 25 points Does my team see the value in the work that I do? And then if I answer yes to both of those, I'm at 50% engagement. Now, do the people I serve see value in what I do? And if I can answer yes to that, I'm at 75% engaged. And then do I see the value in what I do? I'm at 100% engagement. So what does that mean? What it means is it's not so much that you have empirical proof of these things, but it's, do you see that? Do you value the work that you do? Do you see that your team values that work, your company, your clients, or customers value? And when you can answer that and you get 100% as a score, what that equals is 100% engagement. Because what we find is that if people find value in their work and see that others find value in their work, they're completely engaged. And if they're aligned with the values of the company and their own personal values, that's just gravy on the engagement train. And so with that, we have Baby Yoda. How engaged are you? So this one is not the 1 through 5 scale, but what percentage of the value circle do you fall under? In your current team, in your current work, are you at 100%, 75, 50, or 25? And if you're below 75, then that means there's a problem and we need to kind of look at what's going on with you in terms of your engagement. So I'll give you a minute to write down your score on that one. I love Baby Yoda. So really what we're talking about when we think about this and we look at the cohesion of a team, we're talking about that foundational trust. How much trust do you have with the people on your team? And really, this is a great opportunity, if you think about it, to help your team become more engaged. So if we think about how do we work together and how do we keep each other safe? And this is not just about physical safety, but if you think about sports teams, for example, the role of all the team players on a football team is to protect the quarterback for either when they're going to throw the ball or if they're going to run the play to the goal. How do we protect that person? And taking it outside of the sports metaphor, think of a game of chess. What's the goal? The goal is to protect the king. And so all the different components of the game, all of the knights, all of the bishops and the pawns, they're designed to, and the queen is designed to protect the king, to make sure you don't lose your king, otherwise you lose the game. And that really is the physical safety. But if you think about it, we are all responsible for the psychological safety of our teammates. And so how do we do that? How do we keep each other safe? And how do we create goals and measure them in this new world? So this is really about not just looking towards our bosses to create our goals for us, but as a unit, as a group, how do we measure our success and how do we create those goals? And in doing that, how do we create opportunities for us to have those social interactions that we're missing? If you remember that water cooler scene with the 2 minions in the beginning, how do we bring that into a virtual world? Now you'll notice I've been asking a lot of questions, and it's not so much in the sense of just question for question, but it's really for you to reflect. And each question is really a tip that you can use for your teams. So think about it this way. How often are you connecting with your teammates? And do you have some kind of social activity with them? And are you laughing with them? We connect through emotion. And remember, our emotions are really important at this time because for some of us, they're fragile, and for others, we're just really getting to the groove of navigating the situation. And it's important to take time to experience those positive emotions as well. And when's the last time you asked for advice? You know, we focus so much on being helpful to people, but part of being helpful is also being able to receive that help from others. And then along the lines of our value circle, have you told your teammates how much you value them and what they bring to the table and what they contribute to the team, their strengths? that you lean on, because a lot of times someone else's strength is our weakness and vice versa. And that's why we work well with others. If you think about those great teams, it's not that you're all the same. I think someone mentioned diversity in the team. It's about what I may not be good at, Leslie might be great at, and together we make a great team because we complement each other. So that's an example of how we can work together, and then reminding us to be grateful for that and tell people that what they're great at. So in the chat, tell us about one fun activity that you could do with your teammates. I'm sure there's some other comments in the chat, Leslie.
So far, I'm waiting for some of those fun activities to come in.
Cool.
Playing games. Oh, now they're coming in. Hosting a virtual scavenger hunt. Oh, sorry, Emily, that's in the past tense. Hosted a virtual scavenger hunt. That was a blast. I have a friend who's planning that for another friend as a surprise birthday this year, which is great. Karen recently did virtual bingo. Angie likes to surprise her team with silly backgrounds. That is actually pretty funny. I've seen that as well. Share favorite comfort food, says Patrick. Would you rather game, says iPhone. Oh, the would you rather game. All in the emphasis of the wording there, sorry. Adelina, hello. We'll do a virtual lunch gathering. That's very nice. More virtual backgrounds, happy hours and lunches, lots of good stuff.
Lots of good stuff. My brother and his team, they do Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, they do Taco Tuesdays. And selfishly, he loves tacos. So it's a really good excuse for him to kind of show off his taco skills. They all gather in their each individual kitchens, and they have to build the best taco. And so I think that's kind of a fun way to use Zoom, where you're in another space outside of the desk and kind of still feel like you're interactive. And they've enjoyed it so much, they do it every Tuesday, every Taco Tuesday. And they have, if they have children, all the kids get together and help make the tacos. So I think that's a great kind of team activity to do.
I want to throw one more out from Kira, who says they have lunch and a dress code. The emphasis on the dress code is great, because sometimes we need a little reason to be dressed in our usual business attire. So thank you for sharing that. I also want to mention part of the reason for reading the chat aloud is that we have a number of people who call in and they aren't able to see this chat visually as well. So it's just helpful to keep the dialogue going, but thanks for your patience.
Thank you, yes. And I'm actually one of those people that can't see the chat, so it's helpful all the way around. So as we learned from Dr. Sheila's session, we have a bonus portion, and we're going to talk a little bit about energy and remembering to smile when you're on the phone, especially if you're also people cannot see you. Let's say you decide not to show up on Zoom. It's really sort of important to sort of still smile when you're talking, because people can hear the smile. It's kind of an interesting thing if you think about it. And this is Sophia, who had her 4th birthday virtually, and that was her in her kitchen during Zoom. And this was kind of her fake smile. The smile after this was the real smile, but I didn't catch it on camera. So remember, emotions are contagious. And what that really means is that we feel others' emotions, whether it's through that phone call where you can kind of feel their energy. Recently, I had a lovely compliment from someone who said that they could hear me smiling as they were talking to me, which is such a great thing if you think about it. This is why you have to keep your energy up, because people can hear it. They can feel that emotion. And it's really, once they feel it, then it becomes a great part of the conversation because it brings up your energy. The second tip is to be yourself. So this was actually a virtual exercise that we did as a team. We had to go find filters, find the filter that we love the most, take a picture of ourselves in that filter, and then we had to post it as our background in Zoom. This was mine. I found the filter to be a bee. And so that's really about being yourself. If you're a silly person, be silly. If you're a serious person by nature, it's okay to be serious. But the key point is to be yourself. People will feel that energy. And then keeping those lines of communication open. I love this brother-sister moment. I think it's kind of indicative of all of our experiences with our siblings if we have them. But it's really about still talking, still communicating, making sure that we check in on each other. That's the key of being an ideal teammate. And so those bonus tips are keep your energy high, be yourself, and communicate honestly. All of that is about building trust. And so in this crisis, we've got some new rules. And so here's some other additional tips that you need to think about. When you're working in Zoom, have office time for a team collaboration where people get on Zoom and they may not have to talk to each other. They can continue doing their work, kind of like when they're in the office, but a couple of hours of feeling connected, that we're all working at the same time, doing the same thing. And then seek out the strengths of your teammates, because remember, their strengths can sometimes be your weakness. And it's important as a team that you leverage that. And then support others as they become more vulnerable and they talk to you about their weaknesses and how they can improve those. And remember about accountability to the results and not time. Right now, we have so many people that are still educating their kids at home while they're working. So let's not judge how your teammates are spending their time. Let's focus on the result of the work that they do. And to kind of quote Patrick Lencioni and my husband, who both said, it's important to have a rally cry as a team. So as a team, what is the one thing that we can all agree upon that can be our focus, can be our goal as we move forward? And this is a great opportunity in a crisis situation to kind of reconnect with people in a different way. How can we sort of connect, we build with people in a way that we hadn't before? And so this leads us to our action plan. What will you do tomorrow? And how will you become a great teammate? So this is a great opportunity in the chat. If you can talk about what's one thing that you either saw in the chat, if you're able to see the chat, or through maybe an idea that came up through this presentation that you can take and you can do tomorrow as an action plan. What do we got, Leslie?
Well, I added ask my teammates how I can help them, which is something that I have been trying to do. Okay, we got Thad G saying reach out to encourage a teammate, instant message, a random coworker to see how they're doing from Luckman. That's a great idea. I have had a number of colleagues just text out of the blue, how are you doing? Not even work related, just a wellness check.
Yeah.
Rock talks about reminding me of the need for a conscious reset. Yes, to really be thoughtful and intentional. I think that's a great point, Rock. You know, sometimes we get caught up in what the stresses of our own new life and day is, but it's important to recognize that everybody's is just a little bit different. So I really like that.
I do too. It's a great one.
Fantastic. All right, Patrick says, look to get a regular remote team meeting to create a routine voice-to-voice communication. Very nice. That's really, people look forward to it and they plan on it. I see that actually at a personal family level. We've started a family Zoom every Sunday and got a number of people that normally wouldn't be talking every week together. And I think people look forward to it. This is a very, very busy time for me, Angie says. So hit the pause button and proactively reach out to colleagues, peers, etc. People and coaches just to shoot the breeze.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
okay, a few more coming in. My screen is slower than the chats are coming in.
Okay.
All right. Invite others from different departments to join check-ins, daily check-ins, just to see how they're doing too. And Emily, who has been a wonderful contributor to our sessions, talks about a check-in and a check-out. Was mentioned at a previous webinar, and that was an idea for somebody that you don't always talk to, which is really another good one. Thank you.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, I mean, I love what Rock said about being intentional, because it's really, at the end of the day, that's really what this is about, is really being intentional with our communication with each other and with our actions with each other. And I love that. I think that's great. So some of the reference materials that we've used today are 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the GRACE system from Sugar Inc., and then the Ideal Team Player. These are all great resources. I highly recommend, if you have not read those 2 books, to read those 2 books, and also to seek out Jan Sugar of Sugar Inc. She is brilliant. She specializes in communication, and especially in listening, the listening portion of communication, and how we can be much more effective in that. So I love that. And then if I can ask Leslie to jump back on, because we have 2 more presentations coming up, one May 6th and one May 8th.
Absolutely. Thank you for the chance to do that. Right. So Wednesday and Friday this week, we're going to finish up our Encore series. So on Wednesday, I'll be talking about how leaders can support the transition back to work. And about 2 weeks ago, when we put this Encore series together, that seemed a little bit early, May 6th, to be talking about, but it is not. We have neighboring states and counties that are transitioning back to work, and some folks calling may not be from the Chicagoland area. So where you live and work may already be in this transition. So we'll try to uncover some of those details as it really relates to leadership and our own personal contributions. That'll be on Wednesday the 6th. And then Friday the 8th, we have Adrienne Guerrero talking about how we can best communicate virtually, watching our blind spots. And so we hope you will be able to join us. We do have opportunities to sign up for each of these webinars. They've been all throughout LinkedIn, but if you have any trouble, please feel free to email me directly. You've probably been receiving my emails because you're here with us today. But that means you've received a registration link, but feel free, if you don't easily have registration to those sessions and you'd like to reach out to me.
And so all along, you've had 4 questions, well, really 8 questions that you've answered. And so if I can have a brave soul that would be willing to get off of mute and talk a little bit about their reflection questions that they've done throughout this. Or in the chat. All right, well, looks like we don't have anybody in the chat, or
I'll go.
okay. Thanks, Angie.
So the first one is, how humble are you? You know, I really struggled with this because as a business person, you have to kind of subtly, you're listening. Sometimes you're telling stories, and sometimes just, you know, you have to, it can be misinterpreted. So I'm going to go with 3.5 on that.
Okay.
Do you receive apologies gracefully? I'm going to say yes. How hungry are you? I'd put that at a 5. What was the second on the?
How smart?
The second one was how smart. You know, maybe because I'm in the coaching industry, I'll give myself a 4 on that one. And what was the next one? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to cheat.
Okay.
Go back to those for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I'm going slow, apparently. And then, so that second question, are you aware of how your actions and words impact your teammates?
I'm going to go with a 4 on that. Maybe hyper, sometimes, you know, if between 3.5 and 4, because I'm hyper vigilant of that, I would say.
And plus your profession, you know, you're a coach. So a lot of times coaches are a little bit more cognizant of that, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And then
Am I missing any answers?
one other, do you look for opportunities to contribute outside of your area of responsibility?
I do, very, very much so. Whether it's helping somebody with editing books, whether it's, I'm always looking for something. After 25 years of being in business, you're always looking for something to enhance your knowledge so that you could pass it on to other people. Yeah.
Which is the key.
Yep.
And so if you were to give yourself a percentage for engagement, how engaged are you?
I would say that, what I did is I did this based on a specific client,
Mhm.
it's really hard for me. And, I put it at 80%.
Oh,
I liked your system, and I agree with you on the engagement surveys, by the way.
mhm.
And I think where they fell a little short is I don't think they comprehend how much work it takes to create something that's as elegant, let's say, as your PowerPoint. Like they just kind of think, oh yeah, could you just create something? They don't understand that to build value, it takes research, it takes time. Things have to be relevant. One slide has to make sense with the other. It has to be on point, brief, yet add value. So that they scored less on that, which is, does the company, do you feel that they value your work? It's a yes and no. Does my team see my value? That one came in very high. Back to the customer, I focused it on this large client.
Right.
They didn't score as high. And do I see the value in what I do? That I scored higher there. So, that's why it came in at 80%.
That's fair. That's really good. Thank you for doing that. That was really brave, and I feel like you are an ideal teammate.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marie.
Well, thank you so much for doing that. I know that can be kind of nerve-wracking to go and do that, but I really appreciate that because I think that does help everyone in the end really kind of begin to be able to reflect on themselves and kind of see that sometimes we're a little harder on ourselves than we need to be. Because I feel like, Angie, your questions, you were a little bit harder on yourself, but you are definitely an ideal teammate. And with that, I would like to say thank you for attending. And since it's Star Wars Day, may the 4th be with you. Have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. And then I will